Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to look at the question of how exactly does Deadpool get into the MCU? And to look at that question, we need to take a brief but important view of the, at times very confusing, X-Men timeline, so we can figure out exactly when does Deadpool leave the Fox universe to enter the MCU. So let's dive right in and see what we can find out. So as we look at the X-Men timeline, it starts, well, all the way back in the Civil War time frame. Wolverine's backstory has him basically participating in every major war, including the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, etc. I love this part of his backstory, and I hope that whatever version of Wolverine makes it into the MCU, that they keep this backstory intact. It's just very cool. All right, so then in 1944, we learn that a young Professor X is friends with Mystique, and we also learn the very tragic backstory of Magneto, and we understand why he has such a distrust and a hatred for humanity. He basically endured the Nazi prison camps during World War II, and that forever tainted him and his view of humanity. And, you know, I kind of hope they find a way to keep that aspect of Magneto's backstory in his, whatever version of Magneto there is in the MCU as well. But it's going to be tough because that would make him really old if he were alive during those Nazi prison camps. So I don't really know what other tragedy could be as formative as the war camps. Nothing I can think of is that tragic, but I do hope they find some way to just explain his distrust of humanity. And it was done so beautifully and so tragically in the X-Men backstory. All right, so chronologically, the first X-Men movie is X-Men First Class in 1962, and it involves them fighting the Hellfire Club, which of course is led by Kevin Bacon. So you got to wonder, with him now appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, does that make the existence of this movie, not the events per se, but the existence of this movie canon in the MCU? If so, that's pretty cool, and I'm sure Deadpool will find some way to poke fun at that. All right, so then we jump to 1973, and a very important event in history happens where Mystique assassinates Trask, and in the process, his assassination results in the creation, eventually, of the Sentinel program. So kind of keep that in the back of your head. That's a very important plot line that will come up down the road. But also in 1973, we have Wolverine and Sabretooth getting in a lot of trouble for some of Sabretooth's actions during the Vietnam War, and that results in them joining Team X, along with, yes, Ryan Reynolds in the first attempt at Deadpool, which is not at all connected to the later attempt at Deadpool, but there are some fun jokes at his expense. So we'll come back to him as well. And then at this point, Wolverine in the same year leaves Team X. 6 years later, during X-Men Origins Wolverine, Wolverine is willing to undergo the experiment and the transformation to put the adamantium into a skeleton and on his and to create the claws. He had bone claws before that, and now they become his famous adamantium claws. He does it so that he can hunt down Sabretooth, and because Sabretooth started killing off the old team members of Team X and also seemingly killed Wolverine's girlfriend. So Wolverine undergoes the experiment and ends up fighting, a really messed up now version of Deadpool. That is Ryan Reynolds underneath all that makeup. So crazy, and that will come back up again down the road. Wolverine ends up getting shot in the head by an adamantium bullet and losing his memory. And a questionably de-aged Professor X shows up to rescue some of the mutants from the movie. All right, then we jump to 1986, where both Professor X and Magneto visit a young Jean Grey. I mainly bring this up to show some more very questionable de-aging. Man, I'm so glad the de-aging has gotten better over the years because, wow, it was not good during some of these earlier attempts. All right, so then we go to the OG X-Men movie in 2003 where the X-Men take on the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. That is immediately followed by X-Men United. Fantastic movie, great follow-up, better than the original. Nightcrawler is amazing. We meet an older Stryker. Stryker is the one that did that experiment on Wolverine to give him the adamantium skeleton. And now we meet him years later, and just a great movie, through and through. Then it's followed up by a not-so-great movie, X-Men Last Stand. It's not terrible, it just could have been better, but it does introduce several awesome characters, Colossus, Kitty Pryde, Beast, Iceman, some of whom appeared in the previous movie, but in smaller roles, but they get a pretty good role in this movie. Juggernaut shows up in this movie. Cyclops and Professor X die, seemingly. They're both going to end up coming back eventually. Professor X a little faster. And then we have Dark Phoenix, the first attempt at the Dark Phoenix saga, which of course results in Jean Grey dying. Then we have the Wolverine. We jump to 2013. Some awesome fight scenes. The train fight scene is just incredible. And it ends with Professor X showing up and reuniting with Wolverine after all these years. Then we move to Days of Future Past. And if you remember my mentioning that there's going to be something important with that assassination of Trask and the Sentinels. Well, by the time of 2023, the Sentinels are now very powerful and are wiping out mutants worldwide. And these are the last few mutants alive. So they come up with this idea where Kitty Pryde uses her phasing powers to phase Wolverine's mind back in time. Okay, go with it, right? Just go with it. So she sends his consciousness back to a 1973 Wolverine. So we pick back up in 1973, at Wolverine style in there. This time Trask is saved. Therefore, the Sentinel program is not created. But we are treated to an unbelievable scene with Quicksilver. Oh my goodness. Absolutely my favorite action scene of all of the X-Men movies. Probably top 5, maybe even in the MCU. Just incredible. Got to check out this movie if you've never seen it. Then we have some of the teases at the end of the movie. Now, keeping in mind at this point, Wolverine had not yet become Weapon X, had the adamantium skeleton. So a young Stryker seemingly captures him, and you think, oh, he's going to put the skeleton in him eventually. No, it turns out it's Mystique pretending to be Stryker, which is a plot line they never follow up on, which really makes no sense. So you just got to kind of forget it and assume that Wolverine breaks away from Mystique, Stryker, but gets captured by actual Stryker and gets the skeleton again. Whatever, right? Oh, it's confusing. Then likewise, and this is why I don't really like time travel stories, suddenly, a la Back to the future is rewritten magically, and now Jean Grey's alive again. Remember, she died in The Last Stand when she turned into Dark Phoenix, and Cyclops is alive again, and of course Professor X we already saw was alive. Wolverine's happy, but we're all confused, right? So in fact, let's take a pause and look at this timeline then. So we've covered 1962 all the way up to 2023. Personally, I would like to think it's a branch and not a rewriting of history. I just don't like the timeline stories where you change the past and rewrite your future. I think the Hulk's explanation makes so much more sense that your past now becomes your new future. So I would like to think it created a branch. I guess it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But so that the new branch or the new timeline still has the 1962 X-Men movie, though. That's kind of interesting. And then it does have this scene where Wolverine returns to the future, I guess, and we see everybody's alive. Hold on to that thought, because that scene's going to end up not making sense down the road. But anyway, so there you go. That's where we are so far. So then we move to X-Men Apocalypse, which wasn't terrible, but wasn't great. And yes, believe it or not, that is Oscar Isaac a la Moon Knight underneath all that Apocalypse makeup. Such a waste of talent to coat him and all that. And then we see Wolverine in this movie now, again, being turned into Weapon X, getting the adamantium skeleton. So twice now it's happened through time. Then we move to X-Men Dark Phoenix in 1992, which was the second attempt at the Dark Phoenix saga, and I would argue the second failure. So I don't know why they can't do this movie right, but they've tried. I'll give them credit. And even Quicksilver, much as I love him and his scenes, even he can't save the movie. This is a low point, and it's probably one of the biggest reasons why Fox gave up and gave it back to Disney, because it was not working anymore. So yeah, watch the movie for completeness if you want, but prepare to be disappointed by the end. Then we move to Deadpool. Awesome movie, awesome. Just a whole new take on the Deadpool character. Again, no relation, no tie whatsoever to that earlier Deadpool. In fact, he makes fun of that multiple times. Ryan Reynolds is so funny. Yes, the movie is very, very rated R, but it is epic. So check it out if you haven't seen it. Then we have Deadpool 2. And Deadpool 2 brings us Domino, brings us Cable, another shot at Juggernaut, lots more great comedy. And Cable, yes, brings in another time travel story and another Back to the Future-esque type of rewriting of history. He's coming from 2068 to change some things that cause his family to be lost. So again, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of the rewriting of history type timelines, but so be it. That's what we got. So also, interestingly in the movie, we get a cameo from the X-Men. So since this is around 2018 timeframe, that must be what the X-Men look like, more present day. So that's kind of cool. Then at the end of the movie, I mentioned Cable uses time travel. Well, Deadpool takes the time travel device, saves his girlfriend, saves one of the teammates, Peter, that lost his life in the movie, kills the crappy Deadpool, which is epic, and kills Ryan Reynolds himself so that he doesn't do the Green Lantern movie, which was another attempt at a superhero movie with Ryan Reynolds in it that just didn't go well. So I'm so glad that he didn't give up and quit doing superhero movies, because when you throw in Blade 3, he was in kind of 3 stinker superhero movies. But hey, 4th time's a charm. Deadpool is awesome, as is Deadpool 2. All right, so let's look at the timeline again. We now have at least 2 branches, maybe 5 or 6, since Deadpool used the time machine multiple times. But so we have 2068's Cable coming back to 2018, rewriting time again, or creating a branch, which is what I'd like to think. But either way, so there you go. And then here's what's weird. Mind you, notice 1992, we now know Jean Grey is dead because she died during the Dark Phoenix saga. So then what do we do with this scene, right? I don't know. When did this even take place? Did it ever take place? That's the problem with rewriting history, Back to the Future style. I just don't like it. It's so confusing. All right, so anyway, whether this happened or not, doesn't matter. All right, so then the next chronological movie is New Mutants, which I don't have much to say about it. It wasn't my thing. It wasn't terrible, but wasn't great. Kind of the end of the the end of the Fox universe, if you will. Not the last movie chronologically to occur, but the last movie made, and it just kind of ended with a whimper. And speaking of the last chronological movie, that would be Logan, which was fantastic. A great movie, a great way to end Wolverine and Professor X's saga in the Fox universe. All right, so looking one last time at the timeline, there you have it. At least 2 branches or 2 rewritings of history, if not multiple more. So I would think that Deadpool 3 is going to pick up sometime not long after Deadpool 2. And it's going to start with most of the movie being in the Fox universe. We know that there's going to be an encounter between Deadpool and Wolverine, which is awesome. So some type of fight, I presume, with them killing each other multiple times. I can't wait. That's going to be incredible. There'll be some type of storyline wrapping up with some of the other Deadpool characters from Deadpool 1 and 2. But then at some point, Deadpool decides, you know what? I want to check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. I'm getting kind of bored with this Fox universe. But I'm betting he's first going to want to make sure, do they allow R-rated movies in Disney? Because if not, he didn't want to go. But he'll verify, oh yeah, they're good. They accept R-rated movies. That's good. Although he probably won't like the fact they're called legacy movies. He'll make some crack about that. But I think it'd be cool if he at least acknowledges the existence of the movies and the fact that, yep, there's a home for him in the MCU. So then, how is he going to get there? Well, he might actually be so bothered by this Marvel Legacy movie title that he goes back in time to try to convince Marvel not to sell the X-Men. Remember, he's got that time travel device. So he'll go all the way back to 1993, 1994 and convince Marvel, no, don't sell the X-Men to 20th Century Fox. Keep it yourself. And he would therefore literally retroactively make all the X-Men movies part of the MCU. Now, will they go that route? No. That would just create carnage and utter confusion, but it would be hilarious. You can just see him showing up with someone from Marvel. Obviously, Stan Lee is unfortunately passed, but some Marvel exec to try to convince them, no, don't sell. Boom. Now suddenly they're not Marvel Legacy films. They are actual MCU films. That would be hilarious. But no, what I really think will happen is he's going to work with Cable. I mean, Cable has already figured out how to do time travel. Why not? Then he figures out also how to cross universes and not create an incursion. Because according to Multiverse of Madness, you can create an incursion if you go to somebody else's universe. So we don't want that, or he'll destroy the whole MCU. But so Cable figures it out and says, yes, I think I can do it. We're going to experiment with you, Deadpool. So he tries to send him, therefore, into the MCU. I think it'd be hilarious if he ends up in the quantum realm at one point, but full-sized, not shrunk down. Like, can you imagine just a foot appearing in this scene and Deadpool going, I'm sorry, am I stepping on anyone? This isn't working. Get me out of here. So Cable pulls him out of the quantum realm and then starts to send him through the multiverse. So they got to go to some of these multiverses from Multiverse of Madness, right? The noir universe, that'd be sweet. A black and white Deadpool, him doing something from the 30s, 40s, just would be awesome. And then, hey, why not the Cube universe? Why not the Paint universe? I mean, at this point, right? It'd be epic. I mean, him as Paint. Can you imagine Deadpool messing around in the Paint universe? That would be sweet. So finally, Cable says, okay, I think I got it figured out. I've found a signature from the MCU. I know where to send you. I'm going to send you right to where that signature is. So Deadpool's like, great, send me. And he ends up in the Morbius Sony universe in that dopey end credit scene. He's in the prison cell with Vulture, right? Because Vulture would have an MCU signature. And he's like, hey, are you MCU? And Vulture's like, yeah. Well, is this the MCU? Dude, I don't know where we are. I don't know how we got here. This is so messed up. They need to just rip on the fact that it makes no sense that Vulture is in the Morbius universe. So then Deadpool's like, well, hey, I'm going to the MCU. You want to come with me? And Vulture's like, yeah, get me out of here. So effectively, Deadpool rescues Vulture from the awful end credit scene in the Sony universe. That so needs to happen. But so anyway, Cable finally figures out how to get Deadpool into the MCU, but unfortunately in the process, overloads the device, whatever he's using, and it fries. And they're not able to send anybody else into the MCU. And so the Fox universe continues on its own merry way. But poor Deadpool, now he doesn't have any of his friends, right? Well, of course, then he hangs out with Korg. And he even makes a joke about, it feels like we've done this before. So now officially, we will have Deadpool into the MCU, thanks, of course, to Cable and his efforts to get him across the multiverse. So, hey, let me know what you think. Your idea can't be any crazier than this, right? What idea do you have for getting Deadpool into the MCU? When do you think he'll get in? At what point in his timeline? At what point in the MCU timeline do you think he'll get in? Will he bring anybody else with him? My guess is it's just Deadpool, but hey, it could be some others from there. So let me know what you think. I would love to see comments on this one. Then also, like the video, subscribe if you haven't, check out more content, and let's all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing, ever-timeline rewriting Marvel Cinematic Universe.